Discrimination in the name of diversity. That is the topic of tonight's byline. Well, thank goodness for the diversity police at the Pan Am Games. Now, I know what you're thinking. When I say Pan Am Games, you think they're still around? Yes, they are. The purveyors of power walking medals and breathtaking men's field hockey competition are still with us, and they're bringing their games, their festivities to Canada, Toronto specifically. Now, this country can't do much of anything without diversity police getting involved, and the Pan Am Games are no exception. As you may have heard, the Pan Am Games is asking vendors supplying everything from drywall for buildings to hot dog vendors about their ownership in order to make sure the games reflect the diversity of the Golden Horseshoe area. So if you are like Scott Anders, the owner of Scooters Catering, you'll be asked to fill out forms telling the Pan Am Games bureaucrats whether your business is majority owned by women, Aboriginals, visible minorities, or if you are LGBTQ owned. Just look at the form that people applying to become suppliers or vendors have to fill out on the official Toronto Pan Am 2015 website in order to get the blessings of organizers. Are you 51% Aboriginal owned? Are you 51% owned by women? Then they ask you also, are you 51% visible minority owned business? And finally, well, sorry, not finally, persons with disabilities are in there as well, and then LGBT. Now, if you answer yes to any of this, you get extra points in the scoring system that will determine who gets the contract. Isn't that just dandy? I mean, I think it's wonderful that the folks at the Pan Am Games believe so much in diversity that they're willing to engage in discrimination to enforce it. You will get the contract based on your race, your gender, your sexual orientation. Now, who made this decision? I'm going to guess that it was at least approved by the very diverse board of directors for the games. Take a look at these folks. What a diverse bunch they are. Old white guy, old white guy, old white gal. It's a bunch of old white and men and women. There is one black guy on there, and I guess that counts for something. The board of directors for the Pan Am Games wouldn't meet their own diversity requirements. And of course, we know from stories about the outrageous spending patterns by executives at the games that, well, they're also highly diverse, or not. I'm going to bet that if you ask the people that selected the board and the top executives, well, they would just tell us they picked the best people for the job, and maybe they did. But if picking the best person, regardless of race, creed, sex, or sexual orientation, is good for the top jobs, then why not do the same for deciding who gets the contract for the hot dog stand? I mean, are gay porta potties better than others? Does drywall from a company owned by women make a better wall than drywall from a company owned by men? Do hot dogs served by black or Hispanic hot dog cart owners somehow taste better? I'm going to say no. Look, I thought we weren't supposed to look at someone's race or their creed or their sex or sexual orientation. I thought it was wrong to discriminate against someone based on those grounds. I thought it was in the charter. I thought it was part of our Canadian way of life. Earlier this year, the U.S. and progressives around the world celebrated the 50th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech. The day was marked and commented on across Canada and around the world. The importance of that speech raised up. Martin Luther King Jr. is an iconic hero to many around the world, but there's a strange fetish for him among progressives. And I say a strange fetish because I don't think they've ever listened to his speech despite praising it constantly. Because what's going on at the Pan Am Games goes against the very ideals expressed in that speech. At the pinnacle of the speech, Martin Luther King talked about the future that he wanted for his 4 children.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
By the content of their character. You know, I understand there was injustice in the past, in Canada, in the United States, elsewhere. But you don't answer injustice with injustice. You don't fight prejudice with prejudice. We shouldn't be doing this, but we are. And not just in the Pan Am Games and how they hire, how they hand out contracts, but in government jobs across the country. People that speak out against this, people like me, we're called racists, homophobes, anti-women, or just plain bigots. No, I'm not any of these things. You're not any of these things for standing up against it. I stand where Martin Luther King Jr. stood 50 years ago when he said he dreamed of a world where we would judge people based not on their color, but on the content of their character. And that's the byline.
big cheer for Kids CBC and the Karate Kids. And put your hands together for the TO 2015 Pan American Games mascot, Patchy the Porcupine.
Rusty the Porcupine with quills, all the colors of the rainbow. John Robson joins me now in studio to talk more about this. John, it should be infuriating to Canadians to find out about this sort of thing, but unfortunately it seems like it's business par for the course.
Yeah, I like the mascot, you know, all the colors of the rainbow, but impossible to swallow. It reminds me of Randall Jarrell's jibe about people who'd swallow a porcupine if you painted it purple and called it modern art. Well, you painted a lot of colors and called it diversity. But I got to say, I think the people at the Pan Am Games are a bunch of hopeless wimps. Just feebly uncommitted to their principles. So what is this business with the hot dog vendors and the drywall? I was thinking maybe if you had a feminist drywall company, we spelled DRYWYLL, and that'd be cool. What about the athletes? What are we messing around with people selling you power drinks for? The athletes should get extra points based on their diversity. We don't want to have people.
Hold on, what are you getting at here?
We don't want people competing on the basis in the race if they're fast. We want them competing based on diversity. So first of all, we got to make sure if you are any one of these designated groups, you get extra points. If you start further ahead, okay? But then, I mean, we're just getting warmed up here, okay?
Yeah.
Slower people in the foot race, that's diversity. They should get prizes too. And this is where you realize, again, I'm just being bourgeois here, I've realized. And I'm suddenly confessing that I am patriarchal, homophobic, and stuck in the Middle Ages or some such ghastly place. Never mind the competition, the results. The medals have to be handed out based upon diversity.
So we don't give a medal for the first place person, the person that
Well, we
finishes.
do, but the first place person is the most diverse person, not the fastest person in a race, because that is conventional oppressive thinking. That's how we got into this mess. We're going to get out of it.
So short people for basketball, slow people for track and field.
Yeah, but I was thinking in the competition, but that's where I wasn't actually getting real progressive here. On the podium. You don't even have to have the game because it's not about competition. Again, that's patriarchal, like beating the other person, dominance. Imagine having the winner be up on the highest part of the podium and the loser be lower down. This is outrageous.
Okay, now you're getting into that parody that was on, the bit that was on the CBC comedy show a little while ago about in Ontario, them doing away with the ball in soccer, but still having the game. Just no ball. Everyone gets to pretend they have it.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
okay.
So you're having score. It's Harrison Bergeron, that short story by Kurt Vonnegut, where if people are athletic or graceful, they have weights tied to them to slow them down. If people are intelligent, they have to wear headphones that keep emitting a piercing scream so they can't think any better than anybody else. You don't mess around with the food stand. You go straight to equality of results.
So you're having a bit of fun with this, but this is the thinking. I mean, I think you're giving the ideas to people that live in downtown Toronto now. And if they're watching this, they're saying, ooh, that Mr. Robson's onto a good idea. Yeah. Let's do this. These people keep track of who they hire and what group they come from, what group they represent, how they self-identify. I was on one of their reports, and they compared their organization to the Ontario Labour Force. It turns out the Ontario Labour Force is 48% women. In the name of diversity, they have 58% women, and they talk about how they're meeting their goals. They have 22% of the population is visible minority, but they have 29%. Aren't they great? Shouldn't they have a diversity program instead to hire more men that aren't from visible minority groups now?
Yeah, I was actually, it's funny because I was watching a football game, and when they show football now, one of the things they do is they'll introduce you to the starting lineup, and they show all these guys where they went to university and so on. And I don't remember the team or anything, but it's a starting lineup for one of the teams. They introduce 11 starting guys. They're all black. And you think to yourself, is this a team owner who's committed to diversity? Is this a team owner who's committed to advancing a race whose past history in the United States is marked by oppression? No, this is a guy who wants to win football games. And every one of those starting jobs, a bunch of people wanted it. It's high paid, it's prestigious. Every time it was won by a black guy. Why? Because they happen to be the best person for the job. And this is what, to me, about progressives, the most ghastly thing about this whole business, is that there's this lurking feeling, if we open it up to merit, the people, it won't be diverse. Why do you think that? Why do you believe that a black man cannot make a good hot dog? Why do you believe that a lesbian cannot produce good drywall? What are you afraid is going to happen? 50 years ago, I get it, there would have been discrimination. They just would not have been willing to hire people like this if they knew that they were from one of these groups. But those days are gone. They are long gone. Everybody by now, I mean, I have in my life, I've worked with people of different races, different sexual orientations, people with handicaps. No, it doesn't matter anymore.
Can they do the job?
Because we're all facing bankruptcy if we don't do our jobs right. It's a tough world out there. You cannot afford to choose a second-rate person because they look like you or sound like you. You've got to get the best person for the job, and we all know that now. That's why, I have a dream that one day people will be judged on the content of their hot dogs, not the color of their skin. Who's got the best hot dog? Who can deliver them hot, wholesome, got to meet the health standards, on time, make people happy, have imaginative condiments, have friendly service. Who can get you a satisfying hot dog experience? That's all anybody cares. We're not going to walk with, wait a minute, that guy's a Negro. I'm not buying his hot dog. In Toronto?
That's not going to happen.
Is Toronto overrun with people like this? Is that honestly what you think?
Well, unfortunately, some people at the top still think like that. Let's see what the audience thinks. Should they pack it in and change it? You're paying for this. As I said the other day when we were talking about the expenses, you are paying for this because there's tax money coming in from across Canada for these games. Should they be engaging in discrimination? Send me a thought. Byline @sunmedia.ca.